Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here to the CNC, the venerable CNC.
Your name?
And my name's Peter Steinbrueck. Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here. I'm not new to this organization. I call it Kent Kemmerer's Club, basically, in honor of Kent. We miss him. Now, I think I better start because the clock is running. So I wanted to cover who I am, why I'm running for mayor, and how I think I can win. Those 3 points. So who I am. I'm an architect. I'm an urban planner. As you may know, I'm a former city council member. I was elected by my colleagues after 2 years on the council to council president. I am also a proud father of 2 fine young men, Ben and Mason, and I make awesome pizza. So, after 3 accomplished terms at City Hall, I went on to study urban environmental policy in the United States at Harvard University as a Distinguished Loeb Fellow. That was one of the most exciting learning experiences in my life. I have also been a professional consultant as an architect and urban planner, specializing in complex urban problem solving, working with such major institutions in our area as the Pike Place Market, Children's Hospital, the United Indians of All Tribes, and the Port of Seattle. I've also been highly involved civically, serving and continuously, I think, for much of my adult life and even into my before that, my childhood, but serving on boards and various nonprofits such as the Seattle Library Foundation. I helped lead the effort to pass the library levy, despite my misgivings about funding our basic services that way. We have library hours that are more abundant than ever because of that, and thank all of you. I'm also an advisor to Feet First and the Walkable Livable Institute of the United States. I am on the AIA Seattle board, or have been, and also National American Institute of Architects Advancing Civic Leadership Among the Profession. I'm a board member of the Washington Environmental Council. We're having a board meeting this morning. I just took time out to be here. I also volunteer, you may not know this, for the Green Seattle Partnership, pulling ivy and sticker bushes out of our parks and ravines, working with others, mentoring youth, and so on. These things give me great satisfaction. I also teach, speak. I've taught and given lectures at institutions such as Northeastern University, University of Washington, Harvard University. I'm going out to Tulane for the 3rd time later this next month. I've also given speeches internationally on sustainable cities, which is, I consider, my passion and core kind of avocational area of study and research. But I like to put these things into practical terms and specifics. Why am I running for mayor? I'm crazy. You gotta be. That's what they tell you. Well, in all seriousness, this is something long in coming that I've thought long and hard about, and it comes to a point where in your life you're ready to take on such a great, awesome, daunting challenge. And I feel ready, and I feel prepared, and I feel I have the experience and qualifications. I also have a strong vision for Seattle's future, I believe, that is citywide and regional, but at the same time puts neighborhoods, people, and community first. Things I think you all care dearly about. I do. Our unique and diverse neighborhoods are the soul of our city. They provide the quality of life and why people want to live here. Over the past decade, Seattle's population, you may know, has grown by more than 50,000 people. And it's expected to grow by at least 100,000 more over the next 15 to 20 years. That's a lot more people. I'm not an advocate of trying to stop growth. I don't believe that. I don't think it's necessarily good either. Look at what's happening to cities like Detroit and other cities in the Rust Belt that have a $12 billion deficit and are in bankruptcy. We can't let those, that trend spread to our city. We've got too much going for us. But I do believe that we should plan intentionally and protect neighborhoods and build community at the same time. And I have lots of ideas on how to do that, but no time to go into them today. My goal is to build a new framework to support what I call complete neighborhoods. No, this is not a code word for packing more density in to our neighborhoods that is undesirable, ugly, out of place, unfit, poor fit. There is a way to do density right, and there's a wrong way to do it. I know how to do it right. Density is a dumb word, as I said before. It needs help from people who understand what it means for livable, walkable communities and good design and people places, services, amenities, even places to work can be part of our local communities. So I have a great vision for complete neighborhoods in our city, and I want to advance that as mayor. It's a motivating passion for me. I also have a regional perspective, as I've mentioned, and I think to be truly sustainable city, we have to work regionally, because you cannot simply advance carbon neutrality thinking that Seattle's a bubble and you're going to somehow get there. When we all live, work in different places, we move in and out, we're a metropolitan region of close to 3 million people, and we need to grasp that and understand it. So transportation, housing affordability, the environment, growth challenges, these will not be solved in isolation. We need a regional mayor who understands these issues. I do. Now, how can I win moving forward here? I've already gained over close to 200 contributors in just since January. We're fast building a grassroots campaign. I have 60 committed volunteers on our list with all kinds of professional skills, willing to roll up their sleeves. My campaign has been run up to this point by volunteers. That's going to change soon. We're getting some serious and committed professionals on very soon. I have 400 supporters. I think over 200 endorsements, some of them key. Cecile Hansen, the great-granddaughter, great-grandniece of Chief Seattle, endorsed me last night at the United Indians of all tribes. I was so proud. David Okamoto, Kay Bullitt, many others are endorsing me. Why? Because they know that I've got the qualifications and the values and the vision. I'm a strong, viable candidate with a good name, outstanding public record, unique skills, and unmatched qualifications. And yes, I know how to work effectively with the city council. I also know how to work with the city attorney. And I will work with both of them effectively, like you haven't seen since the days of Norm Rice, who knew how to work with the city council as well. I have a record of building coalitions, of getting things done, respecting others' viewpoints when I disagree with them. I learned from that. I'm committed to working extremely hard in this campaign over the next 5 months to make it through the primary with a strong push through the general, winning this election. So in closing, I see our city as a city where neighborhoods thrive. I see a welcoming city, a city that's welcoming to families and children, people of all walks. I see a city rich in the arts and culture and civic life, and activism, yes. I see a city committed to reducing and preventing crime with the finest professional law enforcement in the country that respects our civil rights when it comes to things like use of force, and is professional and works in partnership with community. We cannot solve our crime issues in Seattle, our public safety, without a strong community partnership. I don't hear many people talking about that. I see a city that's compassionate, where people are free of poverty and have an opportunity to learn when they enter kindergarten, and they're prepared for it, and their hunger is non-existent. I see a city where the streets are safe, clean, and walkable. I see a city that remembers and values its past. I see a city with a deep harbor port that is second to none, a maritime legacy, and is on the cutting edge of global innovation, aerospace, health, and technology. Finally, Seattle, I believe, needs a mayor who embraces who we are, who knows where we came from, and can lead us to the best possible future. I see a city for all. I am the right choice at the right time in the best city in America. Thank you. Okay.
You have about 12 minutes remaining to get
Okay.
to do the issue.
I cut into my time there. All right. All right. Apologize for that. I'll work on that. I know I got to get it down to 30 seconds somehow eventually with all the candidates here. Now, these questions were complicated and challenging, I would just have to say. And in some cases, it wasn't entirely clear to me what was being asked in the question or what was opinion. But I will do my best to answer, and I have reviewed them and thought about them. So beginning with the transportation backlog, streets, bridges, sidewalks, funding, there's two parts to that. There's capital and there's maintenance, major maintenance, ongoing operational expenses. We have transit funding shortfalls, and then there's this new planning model called transit communities, which I prefer to call transit transit better served communities, because that's really what we need. Is we're not really transit communities in this city. We're car oriented, and that's just the way we live. Maybe that will change in the future, but I would prioritize the short and long-term capital maintenance needs around health, safety, mobility in the city, around neighborhood centers, basically, as a framework. As I said, I plan to reorient approaches, priorities, programs around a neighborhood-centric model, not to revert back to something from the past, but move forward in that regard, where human activity is highest. And yes, we have to support somehow the growth that is occurring, and it's occurring in an imbalanced way, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Be judicious. Maintenance should come first. Don't create expensive projects like bike bridges that cost close to $1 billion when we have $2 billion in unfunded capital needs right now. Doesn't make sense. Potential funding sources that I see, growth should pay for growth, number one. It's not. Growth is not paying for growth. We're all paying for it in different ways, both directly and indirectly. There are things like impact fees allowed by the state that are not used in Seattle. Why? There's a false presumption that we already have established infrastructure that supports growth. Absolutely false. We will fix that notion, I will tell you. Transportation benefit districts is another way to get the local places that are experiencing robust growth can support that growth through contributing to transportation funds. LIDs are another form. User fees is another form. And I don't like to talk about new taxes, but it has to be shared, and you try to find the least painful way to spread the cost, and starting with user fees, I think, when it comes to transportation costs. Gas tax, there's initiative in the state to increase transportation funding at the local level. There's a lot of different places to turn. So transit communities also, as I said, should really be called transit better served communities, because our service levels, I believe, are inequitably distributed throughout the county. Now, the county has moved to fix some of that. The old 40-40-20 rationing program has been changed. But this is a transit, this city has one of the best trolley car systems. I don't mean streetcar, I mean buses, electric trolleys in the United States. We have an advanced, mature system that we can build on and improve, and I think we can also introduce effective bus rapid transit. Rapid Ride is still going through the experimental phase. It's got a long way to go before it becomes a really good mass transit system, but it is the most cost-effective, proven mass transit system, not just here, not just in the United States, but in the world. It is far, far less expensive than fixed line, light rail. I wish we could have subways. That would be the glorious best result if somehow we could afford them, but those days I think are lost. So anyway, those are some ideas on that one. Gentrification, is it good? Is it bad? What is it? How do you define it? Well, I define it as when race is influenced by the upscaling of a neighborhood. Race and community are affected, displaced. This is has been most exemplified in the Central District. Some people appreciate that their property values go up as a result of gentrification. And so, there are different ways of looking at it. It is a paradox, however. The biggest impact, as I mentioned, has been to the Central District, and it causes racial and income-based displacement and disparities. That's not good. In my life, in fact, though, I want to give you a different picture. Nearly every corner of our city has been gentrified. The last two remaining areas, I would say, or three, perhaps Rainier Beach, Georgetown, beginning to get gentrified, artist colonies, architects moving in, restaurants, you've seen it, South Park. Those are the last fringes within Seattle. Every other neighborhood in this city, predominantly single family, has become gentrified in the clear definition of the term. Now, unfortunately, what has that done? It's driven up the cost of single family homes, which have become unaffordable to working families. And you'll find 6-bedroom homes with 1 or 2 people living in them, while the families have to either move out of Seattle, usually south, or find rental housing to live in, to support families. That's this weird inverse relationship that we have in Seattle, and it's unfortunate. I grew up here when family-size homes were affordable to most working people. And we're losing our middle class there, our middle-income earners. Rental housing, on the other hand, is the most affordable form of housing we have in the city, just on a straight line basis. In terms of, if you look at comparable rental versus single family, number of bedrooms, you're going to find better deals in rental housing. I know I've been in the rental housing market myself as a renter. Those are some of the issues with gentrification. I would say there's some good things. Ballard has tremendously benefited from some of the gentrification that has occurred, like the farmers markets. So has Columbia City. Some other places in the city have enjoyed resurgence of neighborhood businesses, mom and pops, owner-operated, lovely restaurants, and some improvements that come with that. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that. And by the way, Seattle's population in poverty is higher than the statewide, if you didn't know that. It's around 13%. Over 80,000 people living below the poverty line. That's something we should be concerned about. So there's a check on gentrification, which is to sail all ships, as they say. Budget stabilization. Boy, this is a complicated one too, but I know a lot about budgets. I've worked 10 budgets over my 10 years and struggled with the challenges and the priority setting. Budget sustainability is not a problem as long as revenues continue to have modest growth that is in balance with expenditures. And that has been true for much of the time in the last several years. However, the Iman initiative that restricted property taxes to 1% per year increase, which is 1/3 of our general fund support, makes it particularly difficult to straddle the difficult times when we can't quite balance revenues and spending without making some painful cuts. This city does fairly well in terms of revenue. It's revenue based, I believe, all in all. And I think, we're expecting to have continued growth and prosperity on well into the future with the diverse economy we have. Challenges are cost of living adjustments that are fixed, contracts that are fixed, retirement funds, employee medical expenses go up 20% per year on average for city employees. That's a problem. That's a challenge. Now, the county's done a lot more than what the city has when it comes to curbing medical expense costs for employees, and I think we could learn some things there. Now, some options for stabilizing the budget. One of the things we don't do in Seattle anymore, who's ever been leading finance and policy and has influence over the city auditor, we have fallen off on our financial and performance audits in this city. And it's potentially costing us hundreds of millions of dollars. Compare the kinds of audits the county's been doing in the last few years. There's been only 3 or 4 financial performance audits with our city auditor. Not to bash the city auditor, but we have fallen off. The audit function, the primary core audit function, has drifted into other areas of community interest and council interest. And mayors tend not to direct audits. They want to stay as far away as possible from the auditor. But my point is, we could potentially save millions and millions of dollars through performance audits, best practice management practices, waste, inefficiency, malfeasance. I know it's popular to talk about that, but it's true. I've seen it where it's worked. Number 2, reduce spending to sustainable levels. Well, okay, we got to ask what a sustainable level is. That's the magic, number, and avoid dedicating revenues, general fund revenues in the future, such as what has been proposed with the Key Arena. There's no economic benefit there. In fact, it's economic cost to the city when all of the revenues are poured back into the facility to pay for it. And then it's a piece of crap 20 or 30 years later, or even 10 years later. And it makes obsolete, at the same time, with non-compete clauses, our beautifully paid off Key Arena, which will be stripped of the ability to have a business plan, because it is all going to this new stadium that an investor has decided, a hedge fund investor has decided where it should go and what's good for us. Don't get me on that one. So also, there are unrestricted general fund balances at the end of every year. They can be reprogrammed, they can be reprioritized and shifted. There's enormous potential cost savings in the area of debt refinance. Refinancing the city's debt and taking advantage of these historically low, incredibly low interest rates. I don't know what they've been doing on that front. So anyway, increase the rainy day fund. That was started in my tenure on the council. In my first year, I think, on the council, we established that. And also, as I mentioned, try to control labor costs and and stabilize the pension fund, co-payments, things like that. Not popular with unions, but we all have to share in the pain as well as the prosperity. So, is growth out of balance in our city? Yes, it is out of balance. It's way out of balance. The distribution of growth is out of balance. And people think, that I'm going to use South Lake Union as an example, because I've had a lot to do with South Lake Union over the years, establishing it as an urban center, the growth targets, the zoning, a lot to do with that. And I'm involved currently as a citizen. But the simple fact is that we can all be happy that there's been 23,000 new jobs added in South Lake Union since the early 1990s. Well, guess how many housing units that are affordable have been added there? Maybe about 1,200 or so. Okay, so where do those people live? Is this environmentally sustainable when we're pumping up this area for jobs, job growth, a good thing, but we're not balancing it with necessary so-called workforce or worker income level housing? Now, the average income here is pretty high in Seattle. It's around $50,000 per person. It's simply not enough to pay for high-rise towers that are being proposed in South Lake Union. Guess where the housing's going to go? Well, people would prefer to live in Seattle. If they've got a nice job working at Amazon or one of the high-tech health research institutes, they're going to want to live in Seattle. They're not going to want a long commute from Bellevue or Redmond. Well, the housing's going over here in Ballard. That's where it's going. So we've got the housing, on steroids in Ballard, and we've got the employment steroids in South Lake Union. That is imbalance. That's not good growth management. Good growth management calls for a 2-to-1 ratio, jobs for every housing unit. And the city has abandoned that, even though it's written into the comp plan. They're much happier to push the growth targets and then exceed them when they've been met. But we need to focus on that kind of balancing act with our planning efforts, which unfortunately in this city are too often subjugated to politics and profits. Okay, so those are some issues around growth. I do think that there are great, am I running out of time? Okay, we'll finish up then. Some places are reaching the tipping point like Ballard in terms of too much growth and density. Other places are reaching nirvana like Columbia City. Madison Park hasn't seen a lot. Great walkable village, but it's very expensive. But there are other places where we can accommodate growth, and my goal would be to work to distribute that growth, those 100,000 more, on a more equitable basis and in a better balanced way that balances the cost of density and growth, supporting populations, infrastructure, growth paying for growth, as I've said, and spread it out as much as we can. And there are ways and strategies that I think are possible there. So anyway, that's that, and I'll just finish up. I don't believe in the old dichotomy of neighborhoods versus downtown, and I don't have time to go into that. I really don't accept that. I think it's a false dichotomy. Downtown is a downtown of great neighborhoods, better than many downtowns, and it's doing really well, and we should be proud of our urban core as well. There's a lot going for it. Doesn't mean that all the largesse of the city should go in one place. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I've run over time. It's been a real pleasure having this opportunity. Thank you. Okay?